G'day, I'm Ian Swain and welcome to another episode of G'day with Ian Swain. Over the past weeks we've met some great characters and today is no exception. We're heading to a game reserve located in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, north of Port Elizabeth. Most guests fly into Port Elizabeth to get here, but a sensational way is to drive the garden route from Cape Town along the stunning coast and end here with an exciting game drive. Charter flights are also available from all points in South Africa to their private airstrip. Of course, I'm talking about Shamwari Private Game Reserve, a malaria-free reserve, which is important for many travellers. And welcome to Theo Cromhout, the manager, Shamwari Private Game Reserve. G'day, Theo.
Hey, Ian, how you doing? Good to be with you.
I appreciate your time and look forward to sharing your views of Shamwari and telling us a little bit more about Shamwari and the exciting changes that have occurred over the last 12 months. Theo, Shamwari features 8 different styles of accommodation throughout the reserve. It means you can stay here and experience lodge and tent style accommodations in 4- and 5-star comfort. Personally, I've stayed at Eagles Crag and Baeti. Perhaps, Theo, you can elaborate on the key difference between the iconic experiences our clients can have while here with you and which combination of multiple lodges work best.
Yeah, Ian, that's a great question. If you had have asked me that question 2 years ago, it probably would have been a little bit easier. But the last 2 years, we've pretty much reinvented the entire Shamwari Private Game Reserve. When I say that, it means we've refurbished, we've done a major refurb on 2 of the 8 lodges. We've done a significant rebuild of the flagship Longley Manor, which took place over the course of a year and which opened up in December of last year. And then we also we built a brand new Sandile luxury tented camp. So effectively, and we've also done a soft refurb in 1 or 2 of the other smaller lodges. So effectively, the Shamwari of 2 years ago is very, very different to the Shamwari of today. But today we've got a wonderful portfolio of lodges and a lodge and an option pretty much to cater for anyone. Within the 25,000 hectare reserve, we've got, as you mentioned, 8 lodges, and each very unique and very different in its own special way. We're in the south of the reserve, so where I'm now talking to you, I'm in the family suite of the new Longley Manor, and we'll talk a little bit about Longley Manor a little bit later on. Apart from to say it is the original flagship of Shamwari. Most of your clients would remember that old pink building. I don't know if you remember it.
I do.
I'm fortunate to say it's no more pink, which everyone is delighted about. We got rid of the pink. And the property undertook about a one-year facelift and reopened in December of last year. So we're very proud of Longley Manor, and that's why I start off with Longley, because that was the original lodge that started off with Shamwari almost 30 years ago. Moving on to the next property, you mentioned you stayed at Eagles Crag, Ian, also completely different. That was the first lodge that we did a 6-month refurbishment on in 2018. And that is completely new. We redid all of the freestanding units. As you know, there are 9 private suites, each freestanding, each in its own little house effectively with its own entrance, its own plunge pool, its own deck. And that has been completely redone. The main section of the lodge also completely redone. When you were there, you would have dined on the bottom floor. We've raised everything up onto a deck now that stretches out over the bush. It is quite spectacular. The look and feel is a very modern, contemporary African feel, but it's very much catered towards couples, honeymooners, and people that are traveling without children. You also mentioned Baeti. That's also one of our more popular lodges. It's a luxury tented camp. So effectively, all of the rooms are luxury 5-star, except they're tents. And we last year started a refurbishment program on Baeti. So we built 1 prototype, and then we've got hit by COVID. So that's been placed on hold, but we'll come back and refinish the other 11 probably within the next year or 2. That is also for a wider spectrum of guests, obviously couples, but also we do get quite a lot of families staying there as well. In the north of the reserve, you've got Lobengula. That's one of the old lodges, very small private lodge. It's only got 6 suites, so it can sleep 12 people. We think it's going to be very popular in the new post-COVID world, purely from the point of view, you mentioned earlier, multi-generational travel. So we're finding that we're getting a lot of inquiries for people, from guests that are wanting to take a whole lodge on an exclusive use basis. So Lobengula in the north will be ideally suited to that. Back in the south, we've got our Sirilli, which is again is effectively a villa in the middle of the bush, a beautiful big house, a lodge in the middle of the bush. And that'll also be offered on an exclusive use basis. So you won't book 1 room or 2 rooms. You'll have 10 people, a family with grandparents or both sets of in-laws, and you'll take the whole of Sirilli Lodge. You'll have your private chef, your private game ranger, your private host, and you can pretty much come and go as you please. Then the next lodge, I've done Lobengula. I've spoken about Eagles Crag, Bayeti,
Riverdene.
Excuse me?
You got Riverdene.
Riverdene, that was the next one. I'm sure, yeah, I know you're wanting to chat a bit more about family travel later, but Riverdene was the second lodge that we did a complete refurbishment on. And with that, we opened up, obviously take it with a pinch of salt because I'm the general manager here, but it is quite an extraordinary product. It is, I think it's completely unique, and there's nothing like it in South Africa, if not on the continent of Africa. And what I'm referring to, obviously the bespoke kids facilities, the adventure center that we've built. All I'm going to say for the moment when we revisit it later is that I always get a chuckle when families check in there, because I don't know who's more excited, mom and dad or the kids. The kids because they're going to play in the adventure center, or mom and dad because they're going to finally get some downtime, because they know the kids are going to be looked after by the rangers and the babysitters. But Riverdene is something special, and absolutely right. We've developed a family program specifically for children right down to the age of 2, 3, 4 years old, where the rangers, the childminders, the professional babysitters really make an experience for the children, not just for mom and dad. And then, of course, we built a new luxury tented camp, which I have to say, Ian, you're not supposed to have a favorite child. I've got 3 children, so I always watch my P's and Q's. But I have to say that the new Sandile luxury tented camp that we built from scratch starting May last year, it opened up in December, is quite extraordinary. That's got 9 individual luxury freestanding tents, each with their own private plunge pool, each with their own outdoor shower. Each is freestanding. It's very private, very intimate. Every one of the luxury tents, especially after the last 3 or 4 months, has really been overgrown by the natural vegetation. So when you arrive at the camp, you arrive at a central lodge area with its restaurants and bar and a reception area. You're then taken to your tent, and that's probably the last you'll see from you, because you don't really need to leave the tent after that, apart from game drives, maybe a bushwalk or spa treatments or any of the other activities that we offer at Shamwari. So yeah, that's the spread. Oh, I beg your pardon. There is one last one. We chatted about Explorer Camp earlier. Explorer Camp is basically a highly luxurious camping experience. There are 3 tents. You sleep in the tent on a deck. You're there with 2 rangers for 3 days, and you don't see or hear from anyone else. You do bushwalks. All the food you eat is prepared off flames and around the fire. It's a very interactive experience. It's basically 6 guests, 2 rangers, and a chef. That's it. But people love it. It is a remarkable experience. So if you take the 25,000 hectares of Shamwari Private Game Reserve, people often ask us, what does that look like? So what I say to them is, if you start at one end of the fence and you walk all the way around, you'll walk for 140 kilometers before you get back to where you started. So we are the largest private game reserve, one of the largest private game reserves in South Africa. And within it, those 8 lodges are the various different accommodation options that we offer clients from all over the world.
Tell me, when you do the renovations you've been talking about, do you take into consideration ways of changing the camps so that you can get previous guests returning again to have something different or a different experience?
Yeah, that's a very good point. In terms of Longley, if we look at our guest history, we have a very high repeat guest ratio at certainly Baeti and at Eagles Crag. So obviously Eagles Crag reopened at the end of 2018. So we've been operating now for a year and a half. And many people that stayed at the old Eagles Crag absolutely love the new Eagles Crag. It really is being taken to a next level. So you still get a very private, intimate feeling. The location, you're deep in that crevice with these towering cliffs all around you. The bar, the dining areas, the fitness center, the whole lodge. I'm reluctant to use the word modernize, but it has been elevated to a whole new level of luxury. In terms of the fitness facilities, we did a facelift on the spa. Notably, what everyone has commented on is the difference in the food and beverage offering that we have. Obviously, we spent a year and a half training all 80 of our chefs, implementing new menus, implementing new wine list, implementing a new coffee and tea experience. So from that point of view, while people have embraced the change, certainly at Longley, at Eagles Crag, I think the same definitely applies to Riverdene, purely from the point of view that the facilities that we've created there for children, as well as pretty much gutting all of those old buildings and then rebuilding the Riverdene purely with a family in mind and with multi-generational families traveling together in mind. So that's been a raging success. I mean, people are really blown away when they see the new Riverdene. In terms of Longley Manor, that's been very interesting because obviously it had a very colonial look and feel. It was very popular with the US market, actually less popular with the US market, more popular with the UK market. Why I'm saying that is when I had Amanda and Rita join us to come and see the new Longley at the end of last year, they felt that the new Longley Manor would definitely open up a new market in the US, purely from the point of view that it's a lot more modern and contemporary. It's got wonderful spa facilities, the location and the changes that we've made to the layout of the actual lodge around the grounds. All of the rooms are a lot more private, a lot more intimate, but we've kept the old character of the manor house, which dates back almost 100 years. So to answer your question directly, of all the people that have stayed here before and stayed here and experienced the new Shamwari lodges, we have only had one family complain that they weren't happy with the fact that Longley Manor was no longer pink. And I was happy to take that on the chin.
It was a bit strange having a pink building in the middle of the bush, though. Tell me, what does a typical day look like at Shamwari, or is there a typical day at Shamwari?
Yeah, that's a great question. Ian, no, there's not a typical day because I think there's no such thing as a typical guest because every single guest and every single customer is different. They expect different things. They want different things. And so the way we like to approach the art of hospitality at Shamwari is you do things on your own time. Yes, typically like any other private game reserve, we offer a morning game drive and an evening game drive. But to answer your question, you'd get a wake-up call around 5 or 5:30, depending on what time of the year it is. Obviously, the sun comes up later and it's colder in winter. You'd then go through to your bar or dining area in whichever lodge you're at. You'd meet your game ranger for some wonderful coffee, some rusks, and just something to take the edge off in the morning. And then off you'll go. You'll go on a 3-hour game drive. During that time, you'll obviously stop and have a coffee break in the middle of the bush. Perhaps you've asked for a private bush breakfast, which we arrange. So sometimes we're delighted to surprise our guests when they come around a corner and we've prepared a beautiful breakfast for them in the middle of nowhere. And then you carry on your game drive. You normally get back to the lodge by about 9, 10 o'clock, depending on what sightings you've seen. If you haven't had breakfast, you'll go through to the dining room and you'll enjoy a breakfast. Then you've got that period between your morning game drive and your afternoon game drive. So what do? And that's where we leave it up to you, the guest, to decide what you want to do and when you want to do it. Obviously, we've got a lot of other activities. I know we're going to chat about the Born Free Foundation a little later on, as well as our Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. which was built last year, or completed last year. We opened it in May or June. So those are two experiences which are unparalleled. Again, I'm sure we'll chat about them later, but each one of those, we take our guests to the Wildlife Rehab Center or to the Born Free and offer those experiences. Apart from that, if you're into photography, then your ranger can take you on a game drive and can teach you how to take the best wildlife photography. If you're into bird life, you can do that. One of the other very, very popular activities is going on a bushwalk. Obviously, our rangers need a very specific qualification that enables them to take you on foot walking through the bush. I mean, we are a Big 5 reserve, so you've got predators. So you can't just put on your hiking boots and go on a bushwalk. You can't just do that. But that must be one of the most exhilarating, adrenaline pumping experiences. You really have not lived until you've taken to the bush on foot and had a herd of elephant maybe 50 meters away, or amongst a journey of giraffe, or come around a bush and seen a white rhino. I mean, it really is exhilarating. So there's that. And then, of course, we can take you into one of the two local communities. A lot of guests like to go and see the town of Patterson and the town of Allisdale. Obviously, Allisdale being in the north of the reserve, Patterson being in the south. A lot of guests like to see what life is like for the communities outside of the reserve. And then, of course, we've obviously got, each of the lodges have got state-of-the-art health, fitness, gym facilities. And of course, we're very proud of our team of spa therapists. So you can do a spa treatment, you can go on a bushwalk, you can go birding, you can go on a photographic tour. One of the other new activities here at Longley Manor is we have built planted the most spectacular kitchen garden. And obviously we planted it 3 months before the lodge opened. We found ourselves within a week of opening Longley Manor in November, December of last year. We would be taking a guest by the hand with a basket and the chef. They would walk through the gardens, they would forage a whole lot of herbs and leaves and vegetables that the chef would then prepare for their lunch or for dinner later that evening. So that's inadvertently become one of our more popular activities, is to go foraging through our kitchen garden with the chef. So that's a typical day. And then at the end of the day, obviously you're meeting in one of our bars or one of the dining areas, you're meeting up with your game ranger, and then you're going on an afternoon game drive, which is not complete without one of our signature Moby Bar gin tasting experiences. So 2 hours into your game drive, as the sun is setting, we'll make sure we land up at one of the most breathtaking spots somewhere on the reserve, and we'll unpack our Moby Bar, and we'll do either some wine tasting or pour a few gin and tonics, and that just adds to your afternoon game drive. And then you'll have maybe an hour in the evening before you get home or back to your lodge, and then it's in for a wonderful meal prepared by our chefs with some beautiful wine from the new wine list that we've just put together. So if that were to be a typical day at Shamwari, you've got two game drives, one in the evening, one in the morning, loads of activities, spa treatments, walks, stuff to do in between. And then between that, just lots of amazing food and fantastic wine. And after that, I'm going to wet my lips with a signature gin and tonic. So I hope that answers your question, Ian.
I'm glad you're doing what you're telling other people to do. That's great. I mean, and I can't wait to get back down to Shamwari to see the changes and see the evolution that's gone through it since I've been down there. So I'm looking forward to that once we're allowed to do that. Talking about the rangers a little bit and the guides that are an incredibly important part of any safari, obviously. Can you tell us the training guidelines you follow for the rangers that guide our guests?
Yeah, I have to say, Ian, obviously, again, I might be a bit biased, but I'll take it on the chin. To me, the rangers at Shamwari, apart from the wonderful food and world-class hospitality, I think the rangers make it a unique experience. A lot of the rangers that have been here for quite a long time. And I think that's a real testament to the conservation story that we've created. We started off as a very small reserve of a couple of thousand hectares 30 years ago, and now we've grown to almost close to 30,000 hectares. So it's a big reserve with a lot of diversity of landscape, fauna, flora, and wildlife. So it's a very prized reserve for rangers to work in. So that's the first point. The second point is, as our head ranger, Andrew Kearney, is a real stickler when it comes to training and development. And he takes it very, very personally, and that's one of his major drivers. So obviously all of our guides have got the Field Guide Association of South Africa, FIGASA, I think I've got that right, have got those accreditations. And there's obviously different levels of accreditation. But what we're trying to achieve is creating a team of guides that have got a basket of higher skills and qualifications. So if that means you've been certified, that you can then do a guided bushwalk on foot, because as a junior ranger, you can't just do that. Or as a junior field guide, you can't just decide to put a rifle on your back and take guests for a walk. That takes a lot of training and skill and experience. So he spends a lot of time on that, because that's one of the most unique experiences that we offer our guests at Shamwari. Over and above that, we then have a variety of different specialist guides. So we've got one guide, or a few guides actually, that specialize in bird life. Obviously, we've got a rich variety of bird life within the reserve. Over and above that, tracking is a very, very big thing. So there's 4 levels of tracking. I think the highest level of which is a level 4. So I think amongst our team, we've got 3, possibly 4 guides, rangers that have got a level 4 tracking. And then you've got other certifications and qualifications, whether it's astronomy, whether it's fauna, whether it's different grasses. We've got one of our rangers who's doing her PhD on the brown hyena. So training, development, upskilling, and creating a team of guides that have got a high degree of specialist skills is something that really drives our head ranger, Andrew. And it's something that he's very, very well known and respected for.
I love to hear all that, because that's exactly what we tell our clients they're going to expect when they go to these camps and lodges like yourselves, that the level of service and the attention to detail and the knowledge that they're going to receive is second to none. I'm glad you brought up birding as well, because it's something that doesn't always get spoken about on game drives, but the birding is so plentiful in Shamwari, and I'm glad that you've got rangers who really showcase that, because we've got quite a few birders who are clients who want to go down there, particularly people who are revisiting South Africa for a second, third, and fourth time, that they're really getting into the birds. Let's just talk about conservation. I know you spoke about it. You brought up the Born Free Big Cat Sanctuary and the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. Can you explain a little bit more? Because, to me, conservation goes hand in hand with most safari lodges in Africa, but some take it to another level, as we've heard on other podcasts, and particularly with Shamwari, it does as well. So perhaps you can elaborate a little bit on those 2 centers that you have going, and also the interaction that the guests have with them.
I think for me, I think that was one of the biggest hooks where I found my passion and my purpose in joining the Shamwari team, because the conservation story of Shamwari is probably one of the most successful, celebrated conservation stories on the African continent. We started just under 30 years ago with a very, very small piece of land. But the long story short is, over 30 years, we have reintroduced all of the wildlife that was originally here, but wiped out by the farmers and people that moved here and destroyed that environment for the purposes of farming. So 30 years ago, the vision was to take a piece of land, grow it over the period of 30 years, which we've done substantially now, up to just over 25,000 hectares. But more importantly, reintroduce all of that wildlife that was here, that as humans, we eliminated. So if I fast forward from the 30 years ago to now, we're very proud of the fact that we offer a Big 5 experience. We've got healthy populations of elephants, buffalo, lion. We've had wonderful sightings of leopard, and we've got a very, very healthy rhino population, both black and white. So that in itself, I think, is a real testament to the work that's been done. Over and above that, we've reintroduced things like the red oxpecker, which had been all but made extinct in this part of of South Africa, because obviously the farmers used to spray their crops, that poisoned the birds, and they all died. So one of the species that we reintroduced into the area was the red oxpecker. That was another successful story. Obviously, it hasn't always been successful. We tried to reintroduce wild dog, but we realized that the tract of land that we have is just not big enough. But regardless, if you look at the work that has been done in terms of reintroducing this wildlife, and then managing and developing healthy herd of whether it's giraffe, antelope. I mean, we've got up to 18, 20 different species of antelope. We've got the big five. We mentioned bird life earlier, Ian. We've got over 300 species of bird that have been spotted within the reserve. So I think all of that, we're very proud of the conservation story. I mean, our tagline for Shamwari is preserving a vanishing way of life. And that's the whole purpose of Shamwari, is to create an environment for the wildlife that was always here, that we as man destroyed, and reintroduce that and create a natural habitat for that wildlife that existed long before we did. So I think that's the first most important element. But where I think we take it to a whole new level, and I think, Ian, where this COVID crisis that we're all facing, that to me, really highlights the importance of Shamwari in terms of the story and the contribution that we make. And what I mean by that is we support two small communities, a town about 10, 15 minutes that way, Paterson, where a lot of our staff live and work, and then in the north of the reserve in Alisdale. And if I look at the work and the employment and the jobs that Shamwari has created, I think that to me is an even more successful case study of the power of tourism and the power of conservation, and how it has the ability to provide life, jobs, and livelihoods to literally hundreds of families, all of which unfortunately now are suffering because of this lockdown that we're all going through. But in terms of the conservation story, we're very proud of the work we've done here on the reserve, and we're extremely proud of the contribution that we make to the people of Paterson and Alisdale.
That's great news. And I mean, to me, it is just going way above and beyond what has to happen. And it just makes it better for people when they come down to share that experience and learn. And they're very interested in learning about the experience you've done over the last 30 years. Talking about families, and we touched on it a little bit earlier, with multi-generational families traveling. And I think after the crisis, there's going to be more and more. Many of your lodges are kid-friendly, as are the game drives and activities. Tell us more about the Riverdene Adventure Camp, and how do they access the Born Free Foundation Big Cat Rescue Centre as well, to give the kids more of an interaction?
Yeah. So in terms of the lodges that are catering towards kids at Shamwari, obviously one of them is Riverdene, and I'll get onto that in a minute. The other one is Longley Manor. So between those two lodges, that's where we would direct any clients that have got kids of a variety of ages. The cool thing is that if you're staying at Longley Manor, all you need to do is tell the guest relations or your ranger that the kids want to go and play at the Adventure Centre at Riverdene. They'll pop you in a vehicle and off they'll take you. So that's quite cool. But let's now go across to Riverdene, and let me tell you a little bit about it. Ian, it is absolutely remarkable. And when they started building the Kids Club or the Kids Adventure Center, every time we went there, we just chuckled, because it just got bigger, better, and taken to the next level on each visit. So the variety of activities that are available for kids within the Kids Adventure Center is incredible. You've got an indoor section, obviously if the weather's not great. There's an indoor games room with a variety of activities. And we took a strategic decision, no digital and no TV. So it's all arts, crafts, fun, good old-fashioned kids fun stuff, without polluting the kids with any digital devices. So we took that decision. That's inside. Outside, we've got 3 different zones that are age appropriate. And there we've got everything from big climbing walls to little climbing walls. We built a network of tree houses and paths between the tree houses that looks like something out of a Robin Hood movie. We've got zip lines for big zip lines and little zip lines. I've seen mom and dad jump on the zip line before the kids jump on the zip line, and they tend to have more fun on it. We've got a small climbing wall, and we've got a big climbing wall. And then we've got a variety of other jungle gyms and activities and trampolines. It just never stops. But it's all just good, clean fun. Then the other part of the kids program at Riverdene, it's not just the physical product as much as it is the bespoke experience we put together for our little guests. And what I mean by that is the kids program. So every day there's something new, whether it's making pizzas, cookie cutting, making cupcakes, doing arts and crafts, all of that stuff. There's loads of supervised activities for kids to do. And then our game ranger gets involved. And obviously we've been very careful as to which rangers do guiding out of Riverdene for kids and families, but that's where it gets interesting, because every kid on arrival gets a little backpack. In that backpack, there's all sorts of goodies. There's your water bottle, there's a few cuddly toys, but the most significant thing is your cap, your Kids on Safari cap, and your kids' activity book. And the children are set a challenge. By the time they leave Shamwari, they need to have ticked as many boxes as possible. And when they're going on game drive, and this is quite funny, Ian, because you sometimes see mom and dad look at the ranger going, we're not too sure about this, but kids love it. In the activity book, you've got a whole lot of little plastic bags. So the responsibility of the kids is to find as many different species of animal dung as they can. So at some random point, you'll have the ranger stopping, the kids with the ranger jump out, and they'll pick up a little bit of dung and they'll go, is this from a giraffe, or is it from where is it from? And then they have to collect all of these different samples of dung. But the rangers are incredible because they take a very much an educational angle with the kids, teaching kids about nature, the wildlife, animal behavior. It really is incredible. And our rangers love it as much as the kids. You also mentioned the Born Free Foundation. At any time, if any one of our guests, and obviously the kids are the first ones that want to go, we can your ranger will take you up to one of the Born Free camps. We've got one in the north and one in the south. And if I may, just explain a little bit about the Born Free, because I think it gets quite misunderstood. People see big lions and leopard kept in a cage or in an enclosure, and they think it's cruel and it's wrong. Well, it's not entirely the fact. The fact is that those cats, whether they're lion or leopard or whatever, have been confiscated and taken away from either a zoo or someone who's been treating them very, very badly, or they've been ill-treated. So they get confiscated. They cannot be released into the wild because they haven't been brought up in the wild. But what we've done is we've partnered with the Born Free Foundation out of the UK, and we give these lions and big cats a future. So each one of them have got a story. Each one of them have come from a particular place or a zoo or a circus somewhere around the world, and we've given them a life. But what it does is it gives children and our guests an opportunity to go and see and learn about these big cats, where they've come from, and understand the importance of conservation. So it's a very much an educational experience. It's just incredible because you're seeing these leopard and lion that have traveled to South Africa from around the world, and we're looking after them. So it's a real heartwarming story, and it's an incredible experience for mom, dad, and the whole family.
Yeah, I know our clients love the visit to the Born Free Sanctuary. It's an eye-opener for them, and as you said, it's educational, and they hopefully each of the children and the adults, the parents, bring it back to their own community and live that out as to look after other animals. And speaking of communities, you're surrounded by the two communities, as you mentioned before, and we're finding out that there's a lot of incredible, great stories being told of local communities in South Africa during this COVID crisis, how everyone is banding together to help each other and let no one out. So I was wondering if you could elaborate on one of the stories you might have heard over the last few months that relate to that.
You mean what? Yeah, absolutely. And well, what I can do is I can tell you what we're doing. obviously, this whole COVID crisis has decimated our business. I mean, I've been on the reserve now for almost 3 months, and we've seen no one. We've got a core team on the reserve looking after the animals and the lodges. There's about 20 of us, but apart from that, there's no one. All of our staff, all of those people you're talking about are at home suffering. And they are suffering, Ian. So what we decided is, obviously we took lead from a few other lodges and restaurants and hotels around the country that have started an initiative to feed their staff and feed communities that are not earning any income. So one of the things that we've done is we've been doing virtual safaris, and we've pretty much been doing almost one a day for the last 2 to 3 weeks. And we don't charge for them, but at the end we're inviting clients or whoever's watched to visit our website and make a donation. And we're basically raising money to buy food parcels to give to the community of Patterson and Alasdale. So that's the first thing. I mean, we did one Zoom call for a group in the UK. In fact, it was a group of, it was a travel agent and clients. And by the end of the Zoom call, we had raised 15,000 Rand, which is absolutely staggering. So we're using that money to buy food, to give food parcels to people that are suffering in the community. So that's the one initiative that we're doing. The other one, which is more exciting, is we're teaching people how to fish as opposed to just giving them fish. And what I mean by that is the kitchen garden here at Longleat Manor. We are planting a lot of vegetables, and we have started a project in the town of Patterson and Alasdale where we have identified a small tract of land in the primary schools, and we're going to be teaching the primary schools and the residents of those two communities how to grow vegetables, how to create their own compost, and how to become self-sufficient when it comes to food. So what we're doing is we're using our kitchen garden to grow vegetables, and whenever we harvest it, we take it to the soup kitchen that we're also involved with in the town of Patterson, and we're feeding people. We're teaching people how to grow their own food so they can feed their families. And of course, we're getting very proactive with our Zoom virtual safaris, just so that we can A, entertain people, B, we can also keep our own sanity, because in lockdown, we've got no guests, so we actually live for these Zoom virtual experiences. And we're trying to raise money to help feed people in the community of Patterson and Alasdale. So that's how we're trying to be constructive and proactive in a really desperate time, Ian.
I love that, and I hope you continue doing the virtual safaris, because that's a great way for people to see what's going on and being helpful for the community as well. Listen, Theo, I really thank you for your time today. It's been an eye-opener to me to listen to the changes you've made to Shamwari, particularly since I was down there, and what typical happens at Shamwari, and how strong you are at conservation, and how you've changed that part of the world a lot, and how you're helping the local communities as well. So I really appreciate all you're doing. As soon as the countries open up, I'll be down there and check it all out, and look forward to seeing you and having a gin and tonic with you. So thanks very much again for your time, Theo.
No, thank you, and thank you very, very much for your time. Thanks for your support. And the only thing I want to end off by saying is our doors are open. The minute the borders are open, you guys jump on a plane. We're ready and waiting for you and your customers. We just want to get back to doing what we love and what we're passionate about, and that's serving people. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. No worries, mate. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Cheers, Ian. Take care, mate. Bye, guys.